So, when federal agents raided Sean Diddy Combs' properties, the news cycle went into overdrive about a celebrity scandal. But the theory we're digging into today says this is about a whole lot more than just one man. It presents the idea that this isn't just another scandal, but a rare peek under the hood of how the entire entertainment machine actually operates. Let's get into it.
And this quote, it's really the heart of the entire theory we're unpacking. The idea here is that you can't really get what's happening with Diddy unless you see the Jeffrey Epstein operation not as some bizarre one-off, but as a blueprint, a repeatable, scalable model for control. Okay, so let's peel back that first layer, which the source material calls more than a scandal. The whole point here is that the Diddy case isn't some shocking exception to the rule. No, this theory holds it up as a textbook example of what it claims is just business as usual in the industry.
Now, this is where the perspective really shifts. Yeah, the headlines are all about trafficking allegations, right? But according to this theory, the real goldmine for investigators, and for us trying to understand the system, is all that surveillance footage, all the tapes. Which begs the question, why would you record everything? That question is the key that unlocks the whole mechanism.
And that question, why record everything, it takes us right to the engine room of this whole operation. The source doesn't just call it a criminal enterprise, it calls it a blackmail factory. The idea is that it's not just about making money, it's an intel op, pure and simple, designed to produce one specific product: leverage.
The tool they use is the Honeypot. And look, this isn't about having a good time. It is a cold, calculated strategy. You lure in the big names, the artists, the politicians, the athletes. You create an environment where their darkest fantasies are on the menu. And then you make sure a camera is rolling the whole time. The whole point is to get a leash, a form of permanent control.
And this is where you can really see the parallel they're drawing. You have Epstein's network, which was the alleged honeypot for the political, financial, and scientific elite. Well, this theory argues that the Diddy network is the exact same playbook, just franchised for the music and entertainment world. The targets are different, cultural icons, but the method, the surveilled party, and the end goal of blackmail and control, exactly the same.
Okay, so we've got the model for blackmail and control down, but this is where the theory takes a really sharp turn into some strange territory. It argues that blackmail is only the secondary function. It's a tool, sure, but it's not the ultimate prize. And that brings us to the most, let's say, out there part of this whole thing: harvesting Loosh. So if control is just plan B, what on earth could be plan A?
And that really is the million-dollar question this theory tries to answer. I mean, think about it. If having the world's most influential people on a tight leash is just your side gig, what could possibly be more valuable than that kind of power?
The answer this theory gives is a concept called Loosh. It's described as this kind of metaphysical energy, an emotional output from living things. The idea is that there are, let's call them entities, that feed on this stuff. But here's the catch. They can't digest high-frequency emotions like joy or love. They can only process and consume the low-frequency energy that comes from human suffering.
And it gets even more detailed. This isn't just a vague idea. The source lays it out like an industrial process, almost like a wine list. You've got your low-grade Loosh, which they say is farmed from things like social media arguments and outrage culture. Then you move up to high-potency stuff, sourced from wars and riots. But the top-shelf vintage, the really prized product they call ambrosia, is supposedly extracted from moments of pure, absolute terror. And what better place to manufacture that than in a honeypot?
Now, if this all sounds a little abstract, the theory offers an analogy that you definitely already know. It says to watch the movie Monsters, Inc., not as a kid's movie, but as a literal blueprint. You've got a corporation that powers its entire world by scaring children and bottling their screams. The energy of terror is literally a commodity. It's a pretty chilling way to reframe that story, right?
So if you accept this model, this machine built on control and energy harvesting, what happens when a gear in that machine decides to break? What happens when someone on the inside tries to expose it? Well, that leads us right into what the source calls the celebrity purge, which it describes as the system's lethal immune response.
The name this theory gives to a person like that is an amplifier. The idea is that these are celebrities who get the massive platform the system gave them, but then they start using it to broadcast the wrong signal. They start talking about corruption or maybe even investigating exploitation networks. They stop being an asset, and overnight they become a catastrophic threat that has to be silenced.
So let's look at the first case file presented in this theory, Cornell. Now, we all know the official story is suicide, but this theory zooms in on what it calls a huge red flag, 9 fractured ribs, which it argues just don't add up with the official report. The claim here, the hidden truth if you will, is that Cornell was digging into child trafficking networks, and he was silenced for it.
And then there's Chester Bennington, who is one of Cornell's closest friends. The theory points to 2, let's say, chilling details. First, the method of death was the same. Second, it happened on what would have been Chris Cornell's birthday. According to this theory, that's no coincidence. It's a ritual. It's a message sent loud and clear to everyone else on the inside. We did this. Stay in line.
And the last case file we'll look at is Britney Murphy. The source claims she was about to go public about a predatory network in Hollywood. Officially, she died of pneumonia and anemia. But here's the part this theory calls statistically impossible. Just 5 months later, her husband dies in the same house from the exact same, very rare combination of causes. The claim is that this was a targeted biological hit followed by a massive media campaign to paint her as just another unstable, tragic starlet.
So all of this, the honeypots, the Loosh, the silent celebrities, it all builds up to the final, big picture idea of this theory. It argues we need to stop looking at these as separate incidents and see the whole industry as one giant integrated system, which it calls the entertainment feedlot.
So what is an entertainment feedlot? Well, think of a factory farm. This theory frames the whole industry as a place where human potential, beauty, and ambition are the livestock. It's a system for finding young, ambitious talent, breaking them, compromising them, and then using their influence to pump out a certain kind of culture. And at the same time, it's the main recruiting pipeline for the honeypots themselves.
And this theory lays out the process, step by step. Step 1 is vetting, using things like kids' pageant circuits to spot potential targets early. Step 2 is grooming, often through institutions like modeling agencies. Step 3 is initiation, the infamous casting couch, which this theory claims is less about sex and more about getting permanent blackmail material. And the final step, extraction, is when these compromised assets are used in the honeypots, in what were allegedly called Diddy's freak-offs.
And that brings us to the very end. This theory completely reframes the entertainment industry, not as a dream factory, but as a factory farm. It presents this incredibly dark schematic of control, blackmail, and energy harvesting. And it leaves us with one final, really unsettling question. If the entertainment industry really is a farm, who are the farmers?